Welcome to Bullish on Business. And this is Rose Odette, your host. And we do here is we feature entrepreneurs, innovators, and leaders who are building bold companies or influencing them and shaping the future of business. I'm your host, as I said, and today we have a very, very special guest, and his name is Tim Moore. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Rose. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, Tim is a CEO and co-founder of Clixie AI, serial entrepreneur, startup mentor, and someone with more than 3 decades of experience building companies around the world. And we met at a Build an App in a Day conference a couple of months ago. Can you believe it's been that long already?
No, I can't.
So Tim was our judge, and he had a tough job because we had so many cool products there that day. We had a guy to my right that was working on a dating app called Lab. Now he was on the podcast a couple days ago. That's Theodore. And then a guy on my other side, he was doing an app for his church, and they were developing an app for pop can donations. So it really scales. I love this space. We get to meet so many cool people, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Really, really cool. Okay, well, let's see. Tim has helped launch internet infrastructure. He's scaled startups, and now he is focused on interactive AI video technology. Tim, again, welcome to the show. Let's get into this. Tim, you spent more than 35 years building companies across several industries. What first sparked your entrepreneurial drive?
Again, I just want to say thank you for having me. This is a great opportunity. You've got an amazing podcast, and the things that you do are very well needed and used inside of our community. So please keep up the good work. That's first and foremost. But how I got started on my entrepreneurial journey is a little different from most people because my father was an early stage tech entrepreneur back in the mid 80s before most people could spell the word. And that's a phrase I use fairly frequently. But back when he started, there was no such thing as like really venture capital the way that we understand it today. And growth equity looked very different. And so my father started his business by literally bootstrapping it, putting a very large mortgage on his home and believing in everything he did and forging forward. So that was I watched him start the company that he successfully sold 15 years later in our kitchen when I was 15, sitting next to him and his business partners. So I've been exposed to entrepreneurship, the opportunity to own your own destiny, and all those things very early on.
Awesome. Wonderful. I bet he was super proud of you. Is he still with us or has he
No,
passed?
unfortunately, he passed away about 2 years ago, but he was
Oh,
involved with this company up until almost literally the day that he did pass away. And
oh
so I did have
wow.
an amazing privilege to work with my father over the course of about 35 years, traveling the world together, starting,
Awesome.
selling, growing businesses. It was an amazing and still is an amazing journey. It's just that I fly without him today.
Right, right. Well, my daughter and I work together closely. She's not in the tech world with me anymore, but she does work with the electronic medical record, but she's an attorney, so she's busy. But I do her adoptions. So we still sort of team up together. So
Awesome.
how did you work globally? Including those developed early internet infrastructure in Brazil? Do you know Portuguese? What
Fala.
lessons have you for those in those early days that still might apply now?
So, what you're specifically referring to is back in it would have been the early 90s when the internet was becoming a thing and TCP/IP had become a reality, and we could now find things on the internet and do search. And there was a lot of noise around what that meant. And there was in the beginning there were the early browser wars, and very few people would remember this, but Microsoft and Netscape and Mosaic, and there were a couple other companies that were competing to sell an internet browser to folks. And so you had to buy one back in the day. We're so used to them being free, it's hard to even believe that they charge, but they did. And back in those early days, there was no infrastructure in Brazil around a commercial application for what we know today as an ISP, an internet service provider. Comcast, Xfinity, all those guys are ISPs. So they didn't have them in Brazil, and we were working with Netscape, which was one of the earliest graphical browsers that you could use to access things online. And we established a relationship with them that I was able to take down the first um, uh, business licenses that they could establish the first internet service providers. So I literally went down with these master gold licenses and I gave them to the media customers that we were working with at that time. And from there, they launched the very first internet service providers through media companies. And they became very successful with that. And then the market changed. Microsoft came in and said, we're going to give it away for free. And then that business went away. So, what lessons can we learn from those types of things? All you have to do is change the names on the technology and the names of the companies, and not even all of them, because Microsoft is still here today. So, what you see today now is a lot of folks in the AI space struggling for dominance between OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, Grok, all these other models that people want. And so they're vying for your attention right now to make sure that they're going to get you the quickest that they can. But there could be one change in the way that the models work, and somebody could say they could stumble across something, or Microsoft could just announce, you know what? ChatGPT for Business, ChatGPT, like the APIs, it's all free. Go ahead and use it. And then it would completely disrupt this market to the point that the market wouldn't exist anymore. And so it has the same potential for disruption that other things do. And then, not to make the answer longer than you wanted it to be, but technology typically follows a trend. You get some early emerging leaders that create a buzz. Sometimes it's bleeding edge. They don't survive, but they create the market and the opportunity for others to come in. Then a lot of people see the opportunity, they surge in, they overbuild, and then the market doesn't necessarily need all of the things. So prices come down, and then companies exit, they're bought out, they consolidate, and then you have something that's productized. That is the cycle that we've seen repeatedly in technology and in business in general. Although they do say AI is the model that breaks all models. I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but that's what history has shown us.
Awesome. Very huge background. Very cool. I remember those Netscape days.
It was a while ago. Yeah,
There
it's
was
it.
my number one programmer, his name is Chuck Bartholomew, and he was from IBM, and he wrote the core of my electronic medical record. Well, he left me in the middle of all that. He came back, thank God, but he left for like a 2 year sabbatical and worked for Netscape, and he wrote the Netscape version for the AS400 back in the
Oh
day.
wow.
So
Yeah.
I know I have my own little story about Netscape and how the founders ended up in the Cayman Islands with all their money. And there's all sorts of cool stories about those. It's always cool because you've got the technology, but there's always drama.
Well, to your point, Mark Andreessen is one of the most, I mean, powerful people in as far as investors on the planet, because he went on to start Anderson Horowitz, which is A16Z as we know it today. So they used that money to really build into the next model and became huge supporters of ecosystems in general.
Yes, I love this walk down memory lane. And believe it or not, this morning, I don't know why. I think I was just thinking about how things change but stay the same. But if you think about back in the day of WordPerfect, and WordPerfect owned everything. And then IBM tried to do it with the DisplayWrite brand because they had the old DisplayWriter. and they had the 5520. But then Microsoft Word came out, and that was it. That was it. And now we've got Google Docs, which I think is the first competitor to Microsoft Word since WordPerfect. And that's been a market they've owned for a long, long time. So that positioning is so critical in the day of like we're experiencing with who's going to win the AI battle.
Yeah, and even IBM created OS2 Warp was their operating system to compete against Windows and Apple.
Microsoft.
Hmm.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yes, I had to lug around my OS2 and OS2, the operating system back in the day, because Microsoft wrote OS2 for IBM.
Hmm.
And they got paid for lines of code, not efficiency of code. So Microsoft was making Microsoft Windows smaller and more efficient, but because they got paid for each line of code, they made Microsoft OS2 like bulky and terrible. And that's my opinion. But
Well,
anyway,
I think that's awesome, and I didn't know that. And back in the day, we used to think that more code was better. I used to brag, I
yeah,
have 500 million lines of code.
right.
Today, you don't want to ever say that.
No, no, it's just cool. I love this space. It's never a dull moment. So let's talk about today, Clixie AI. What problems does that platform solve? And what company for companies or creators? What's I see the nice banner behind you. AI powered interactive video. Tell me what that's all about.
So Clixie AI was originally founded as Clixie Media, and it was based around the idea that people so it was pre-AI, so people wanted to be able to interact with things that they saw in video content, not live video like this necessarily, but recorded content. And specifically, it was created as kind of a clicked buy platform where you could be watching a video that was advertising a product or service, or hey, I'd love to find out where to buy that map behind me, and then you could click on it, and then an image would pop up that would allow you to go to a place online where you could find out more information. You could buy that product, you could search for it, whatever the case was. And we did very well with that in the beginning, and we launched that in Brazil. We had about 90% market share at one point in time with all the major media companies back in the day. So we've had a very powerful presence there for a while. And I do speak Portuguese to answer your earlier question. So,
Good for you.
yeah,
That's
so
not easy.
yeah, so we launched that product, and it did well. And then Brazil went through a currency crisis, and then we pivoted and came back to the US, and we realized that there was a greatly underserved market that needed this more than advertising, because advertising is transient. You build something, and it goes away. It's like single-use creamers for your coffee, right? And so we wanted to build something that was evergreen and sustainable. So we got into the concept of education, that video and education back then was an emerging technology, and it was quickly becoming the dominant technology, but it's boring. People don't want to watch static videos because after 3 minutes of a video, I'm now on my phone. I'm doing something else. After 5 minutes, you've lost 80% of your people. So, what we provide is engagement. So, interactivity to us means engagement. It means interactive pop-up smart bookmarks or Clixie cards and adaptive learning and chapters with quizzes that are AI generated. And that's for the purposes of keeping people's attention on the content, which we were able to do with the current platform. So when AI came out, what we realized very quickly, we didn't want to become like building out large language models. What we did was we said, let's do this and replace the human author, that's the content editor in this case, because the video could be coming from anywhere. And so now the AI automates the majority of the process for us. And Clixie AI, our best known customer is Google, but they're not where we make our revenue from. What we do a lot of is licensing. So B2B to C, so business to business to consumer. So I'm partnered with Google, or sorry, I'm partnered with Microsoft Teams, Zoom, and Cisco's WebEx. So their salespeople sell our product as well. You can download it straight from our website. and use it there. But government agencies use it embedded inside of learning management systems to certify people for training. So you want to become a pesticide applicator, you have to watch 2 videos on how to properly apply pesticides. That's us. You see the
Mm.
quizzes that come in, the certification, the engagement, the knowledge retention. That's us. So we're making sure that people are actually learning instead of rubber stamping, people giving like spraying potentially harmful chemicals on people's lawns. So that business to government relationship for us is where the majority of our revenue is coming from today, and where we see a tremendous amount of growth, given the fact that we're in the middle of the biggest disruption of the U.S. Workforce since the Industrial Revolution.
That's a wonderful one. I had no idea that's what Clixie did. I work closely with Course Creator 360. Do you know those
Hmm.
guys?
Yes.
You know, Stockton and Dakota and his that they're three brothers from Utah. They're
No, I don't know
amazing.
them. I just know the product. Yeah.
They got something. They are growing like crazy, and they've never mentioned. I think we need to get you guys together
Sure. I'd
because
love to
I would
talk with
love to
them.
have Clixie integrated into Course Creator 360 because that's actually what I use. And rather than me integrating Clixie into Course Creator 360, you should give Stockton Walbeck a call.
I will. I'd love to follow up with that. So we'll have to do that offline.
He's
Thank
my
you.
friend. I can introduce you if you'd like me to.
Please and thank you.
Okay, let's keep going. That's huge. So, you've mentioned many, many startups through the University of Michigan, and I know you've got the biggest heart. You're always there with a smile, and that's what I noticed about you. The very first thing when I met you, you're so friendly and really welcoming to anybody, no matter where they're at. What mistakes do you see founders making, repeatedly?
Um, it's a great question. And I mean, there's some vertical specific things that people do, like the industry of healthcare, the industry of SaaS, software as a service based technology, hardware manufacturing, those types of things. So there can be specific challenges to those areas. But one of the biggest challenges that I see today is the expectation that if you build it, they will come. Because that's not true, unfortunately, especially in the days of AI, anybody can build anything.
That's
And so
right.
if and how do you get out to market? And so number one, there's an assumption that people need to build a product or a business to attract investors, such as angel investment or venture capital folks, or if you're at that level, private equity. And the truth of it is that's the last thing that you should do, is go seek outside funding, because that provides, well, it doesn't provide. What it does is it dilutes you inside of a company. So if I have somebody come in and invest, now I'm not the only person in the company, and I am now beholden to those investors, which does not give you the same flexibility as yourself. So I really strongly recommend bootstrapping yourself. And that is,
I
yeah.
do too. Gosh, that's like music to my ears. I thought I was the only one that thought that anymore. Oh my gosh,
No.
that's my whole thing. It's like, and in my new product, I talk about bootstrapping. I bootstrapped my company, and I did not want. Well, the thing is that I don't like telling people telling me what to do. Anyway, go
Yes.
ahead. I got too excited.
No, I'm glad you could keep going if you wanted to, but to your point is that you don't control your own destiny. And this is
Right.
something that my father, in the early days, when VC did not mean venture capital, it meant vulture capital. He had bad experiences
Yes.
in Dubai and other places that turned him off to the idea of professional investors. So he refused when he was alive to seek anybody outside of our network of folks. And every company that we've had prior to this one and a year and a half ago has been fully self-funded, either through other businesses that we've exited, but primarily through friends and family. So the biggest problem that I see with founders is they don't want to ask their friends and family for money. They feel ashamed. They feel as though they're begging or something like this. That's not the mentality at all. If you
Right.
truly believe as a founder that what you have is amazing and unique and can change the way people think or work or interact with one another, then you are not begging for money. You are giving them an opportunity to succeed with you. You are giving them a gift. It's an amazing opportunity to join together with this. And the only thing they have to do is write a check. But if they want to be along in a more substantial manner and smart money, then let's have a conversation. But that's one of the first things that people do is they think that they have to go to professional investors, that they shouldn't go to that rich uncle, they shouldn't ask their mom and dad, that type of thing, for the funds. And I agree with you. Bootstrapping is the first thing.
Uh-huh.
Non-dilutive funding from business accelerator funds. If we're talking specifically in Michigan, you've got a lot of things that are coming through the state. You can go to the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, Smart Zones. You've got your Tech Town, you've got your Spark, you've got your VC 313, you've got your folks up north, and then you can apply for $15,000 to $75,000 worth of non-dilutive funding. That's where people
Right.
need to go
That's
first.
huge. That's very huge. I'm so glad we brought that up, and I may even have you back just to have a funding hour because I think it's so needed to give that other voice. My uncle Lido, he made a lot of money in business, and my dad always resented the fact that he never invited him in. And so it might not be that, maybe they want in
That's
and
it.
they probably, and maybe they're like, my dad never asked because he never asked, my dad never asked, and we just got to let them have that conversation, get that conversation, because that could have been maybe a win-win. But that was, a couple generations ago, where maybe people, it was a dirty word, you shouldn't talk about money. There's families still like that. They're like, oh,
Mm.
don't talk about money if you're at the dinner table or at the Christmas table, right?
Well, and then to your point also, I'm not only a founder, but I'm now the entrepreneur in residence for the Birmingham Angels Cityside Ventures, which is right now the most active angel network in the state. We've written a lot of checks already with our members, so I've had an opportunity over the last couple years to see how it works on the other side of the fence. And today, I actually manage deal flow for five different angel groups that ask me what are companies we shouldn't be investing in, Tim. Show us where people need money. And so I'm always happy to talk about that as well because that's a lot of people need help in that space.
Well, let's book it in a couple months out if you're up for it.
Sure.
Okay, let's see here. All right. For entrepreneurs building AI companies today, which that's me and you, um, where do you believe the biggest opportunities are? It's very shifting. The sands are shifting. This is like, do you have a crystal ball, I guess?
Um, okay. So Moore's law is not my law. Moore's law, about how everything changes so fast, is out the door now. It's out the
It's
window.
that
Things are
word
changing
exponential.
exponentially. Yeah, I like that little
Yeah,
wag our eyebrows to show how serious we are. But
exponential.
but it's the idea that things will change on some sort of a cadence, and that is gone. So the what I could say today, for what I believe to be valuable and useful, obviously could be completely changed in the course of a month or less. So I do work directly with OpenAI and some projects. One of the folks that I used to work with, Google, went over there. So it's unusual to actually be able to speak with someone at OpenAI, but I do. So I see a lot of the things that they're building and the things that are coming out. And it's right now, and this is no surprise to anybody, it's all about agents, like AGENTS. So how do I create basically, I love calling them minions from the movie, the Disney movie. You've got these little things that are running around. They're not
With
very
one
smart.
eyeball.
Yes, exactly, with the little fuzzy head sometimes and whatever,
Right,
the little belt in the pants. But
right.
the idea is that you've got something that is barely intelligent, but intelligent enough to do simple tasks. So I am going to lean on people smarter than me. And I'm going to quote Doug Neal from eLabs, who is actually sponsoring the biggest open claw events that's ever occurred this evening in Michigan. But Doug told us, he said, look, he said, agents are coming. He says, what I'm looking for right now is to invest in platforms that manage agents. To me, that makes sense. And I've seen in our own development stack how they're starting to incorporate platforms to manage the agents because we as humans are finite in our capacity to absorb information. And so we're going to need to become managers of non-human entities. How weird does that sound? But it's true. So, how big is your swarm? Do you have 5 agents or do you have 5,000? Because it's the difference. It's like thinking of like Mickey's brooms, right? And the Sorcerer's Apprentice, when all of a
Mhm.
sudden all these brooms are doing all these work. When you only had 5 brooms, you could only do a limited amount. But when you had 5,000, you could change everything.
That is a great metaphor. That really is an amazing metaphor. Now I've got a visual of that. So how do you do that? How do you manage? How would you manage? Definitely not giving them longer lunch hours.
No, you have a platform that will holistically allow you to have the agents work together to achieve outcomes. So you can have, and I'm only using this as an example and I'm spitballing, but you've got a chat GPT that's automating your workflow for inbound calls. So anytime that a call comes in that's going to be that the information needs to come in, and the AI will generate information. It will put it into your CRM system. It will automate that. But you need something to actually answer the phone. You have an agent. I have one called Ava, AI Virtual Assistant, AIVA. She answers my phone. And when I don't answer it, and she has a conversation with the person, she finds out the information. Why are you calling? How can I help you? Then she sends me a text message. Now, if I have a platform that manages my agents, I can have the AI answer the phone and then pass the information over the GPT so it can insert the information into there. And I don't even worry about it anymore. I just walk away from it and then let them just do their thing. Brandon Cooper from Aphid allows you to digitally twin yourself these days. So while you're working, you can have your agent that looks like you go do the tasks that you don't want to do, like go through your email and find out what's important, and then it'll bubble those up to you. And it even looks like you and sounds like you.
Yeah. Wow. That is huge. And thank you for the breakdown. My mind is reeling because, being an electronic medical record guru, I just wrote a book called Agentic AI in Healthcare, How It Will Orchestrate Healthcare for the Next. And so you basically articulated and gave me a metaphor for, what I did probably very clumsily in my book a couple of months ago. And because we're all just picking up bits and pieces here. And lucky for you, you're on the podcast, and for us, because you have access to some of the new things that are coming out. And so you've been to countries, you've worked in markets, you basically see, things kind of from a perspective of a global experience person. So how does that shape you when you think about scaling Clixie AI? Let's say you I don't know how ambitious you are for Clixie, but I have a feeling you're pretty ambitious guy. How do you plan on scaling? And I don't ask you for a secret, but how do we scale globally in this world?
So, I've had over 35 different startups, roll-ups, exits, and M&A activity in 9 countries on 3 continents. And so Every one of them is different. In Latin America and Brazil, spreadsheets start. We're used to everything starting up, and then the totals are at the bottom. In Brazil, it's reversed. The totals are at the top, and the other things at the bottom. So first of all, you have to have common platforms of understanding. If you want to truly be an international business, you have to understand that there is going to be friction between the way that you do things and the way that they do things.
Right.
Reporting, financial responsibilities, and other things vary greatly depending on where you are. Although if you start off with the US based standards, they typically will at least meet or exceed standards in other countries for the most part. So I've learned a lot from cultures and other people. And so the way that I do business today is uniquely me because I do speak a couple different languages, and that causes you to have to think differently when you do things. And you've commented on the fact that I'm a very open, very supportive type of person. That's the Brazilian in me, even though I have no Brazilian in me at all. That's just my exposure to a very warm, open culture where it's friends and family before business. It's not considered transactional. We used to do business that way here a long time ago, and we got away from it because it wasn't efficient anymore. Well, the reality is that you absolutely have to establish strong relationships with people for their companies, for their partners. And it's not just all, what can you do for me? And what can I do for you? It's what can we do together? And so to scale a business, it requires trust. It requires making mistakes, which are not mistakes at all. They're just simply iteration. But the way that I scale, and I actually won an award from this at the New Enterprise Forum in 2024 for my business model. And here's the secret, it's not really a secret, it's the one to many model. So if you want to scale, if I want to scale Clixie, which I do, and I fully intend on having it be a global product because it already is. It's already used in all over in multiple countries in the world. I can't say all over the world, but multiple countries. So instead of me going and saying, how am I going to penetrate Asia, UK and EMEAR, all those things, I said, who can use my product the best, incorporated into their systems? And then I partnered with them. Cisco is a great example. They have me speaking at their UK&I public sector conference for healthcare, government, and higher education. And they are inviting all of the people from all the countries to come see me, right? So I
Yes.
don't have to go out into those individual locations and build up a business because I
Right.
have a partner that can just take my product and scale with it almost infinitely right out of the box.
Awesome. You and I have so much alike in our thinking. That's one of my strategies in my first book, Charge Like a Bull. And that's if you really want to scale, you have to have strategic alliances, as well as you need that revenue powerhouse client that really helps you
Yes.
bring in the revenue. All right. I love this podcast. What, let's talk about leadership. Talk about your principles and how do you build your teams and how big is your team? And how do you lead those companies over the years?
Well, that's a lot to unpack. So I'll start off with so today we have 14 people in the company. We are scattered geographically. Yeah, I'm here I mean, technically I'm actually in Canton. This is my office here, but in Ann Arbor is where we're officially registered. I have um, two folks in New York that work with us out of an office there that they have. We have the majority of our folks are in Monterrey, Mexico, that are our development team. And we actually just let somebody go from the development team because we're incorporating a lot of new AI things and we don't need all the people that we had before. And then I have somebody in Brazil that runs our office out of Sao Paulo. So the most of the folks that I have hired into the company recently, a lot of them have come through internship opportunities from my work at the University of Michigan. So we would be working in the class, we would pick the best and brightest, and then we would go ahead and work with them as interns, and then eventually they would become full-time employees. And then in Mexico, for our development team, the Monterrey Institute of Technology, which is the MIT of Mexico, we have access to the classes there and we can select the top level talent that's emerging and coming out of it. But a lot of it too is 90% of life is just showing up. And I would have never met you had I not said, sure, I'll volunteer to judge at one of Caleb's things, right? And so I
Right.
find that the organic things like this lead to the opportunities that are unknown. And I couldn't predict that this would have occurred, but this could lead to opportunities with your friends that do course and content creation. Or I
Right.
might have found out that you have a friend that has a technical skill in AI that I might be able to use. So I'm always looking for other people to add to the team as long and because it is a family and we are very family oriented. It's a family company.
Mhm.
And it's run like that. So we try to treat each other with a lot of respect. We try to listen to each other a lot. But my personal style is I try to really be a servant leader and lead from the front, the middle, and the back. You know, wherever you need me, I'll be because I try to have as little of an ego as possible. This is not about
Wow.
me, it's about the team.
Well, God bless you. I love that. That's really cool. What advice would you give entrepreneurs who are trying to turn an early stage idea into a real company? And I say this for a lot of my friends in Traverse City because I go to Oops, which is a lot like uh let's say your 1 million cups. You've caught those kind of things. We've got people that for example, a woman who's starting a rental for supplies for weddings, like you know, linen and that type of thing. And then I have a guy who you'd love to meet. They're putting a NCP on hats. So
Oh,
you can
wow.
put your thing up to your phone to a hat like on the golf course, and it's looper lids. And they're doing pretty good, but they're at that early stage. What could we say to give them um, some ideas on how to cross that $50,000 a year to $100,000 a year mark?
Know your customer. It's the biggest challenge that any startup has is they again the assumption that they have a great idea, a great technology, a great product, and that everybody's just going to whip out their pocketbooks and say, "Here's my money, take it, go." Not the case. It's very important to understand what is commonly referred to you as your ideal customer profile or ICP. There are great organizations that can help you to find out what your ICP is, like iCore, that will force you to do like several dozen or 100 potential customer interviews to find out really what you need to do. And I saw your face light up when I said that, so maybe you have some experience with that case. But it's finding out what market that you serve because all things investors want to know is number one, who are you? In other words, do you have the chops to be able to get this product over the finish line? Are you an adaptable founder? Will you crumble under pressure? Do you know how to pivot? And number two is what is the problem that you're solving? You have to understand and be able to articulate that in a very clear and precise manner, and then show those people that you got that problem, that you have the solution, and that solution can scale, right? So, understanding what solution your product is offering to fix what problem. And if you marry those together, go out and talk to every single person that you can find about your idea and get all the feedback that you want. And that will help you to generate potential pilot customers, first users, or even beta adopters.
Fantastic. I couldn't agree with you more. I smiled because I remember in my early days at IBM, they gave me a list of 50 companies. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And then that was one manager. And then another manager, and he gave me 50, and I'm like, okay, I'll do 50. Then another guy got a different manager, and he said, oh, I know it's going to be 50. Don't worry if you can't get all through it. And so it was just a mindset, right? So I was told to do 50. So I was like, okay, I'll go to Muskegon because it was in Grand Rapids. I'll go to Muskegon and hit these 10, and I'll go over here that week. And before the month was over, or 2 months, I had pretty much saw them all. And this other guy, bless his heart, not his fault, he had his mindset. So even though 100 sounds like a lot, if you put your mind to it and you just zoom in and do it, it'll become fun too, especially if you like people. Don't you think you have to really like people?
It helps a lot if you do. I mean, there's you could argue that there's some tech founders that might not be very people friendly that have been very successful, but that's because they have people around them that do like people. So,
Yeah, that whole dynamic duo. I think it's so important that we have, like, I'm sure your father was like the salesperson-ish, and you are, but I'm sure you have somebody on the other side that's more internal, mechanical, operational, that's that's really, it's interesting how it takes those two. But with AI doing some of those jobs, those internal jobs, I'm finding, because I'm like I'm more out there, and I'm finding that I can delegate a lot of that other stuff to AI.
yeah,
What do you
you're
think?
right. And if you're looking for, so one of the cool things I get to do is I get to work a lot and see a lot of Google stuff that comes out. And they ask me to speak at some of their AI gatherings, and I've literally traveled over the world with them in some cases. And a lot of the things that they're doing and building these days are very human centric. But they're also replacing humans that are friendly humans with friendly AI. And there's a Google funded startup. It's in the Google Startup Cloud, and it's called Bordy.ai, BOARDY.ai. And I was turned on to Bordy at a pretty early time because I had the opportunity to see them when they were coming up, and it's morphed into something that is incredible. It is an AI super connector. You go and you connect with it on LinkedIn or WhatsApp. It calls you on the phone and interviews you, finds out what you're looking for. Hey, my name is Tim Moore. I'm building an AI interactive platform. I'm looking for a technical co-founder that understands these things. And Bordy will say, oh, hey, Tim, I've got 15 people in my network that would match your profile. Here they are. Would you like to review them, accept them? And if you say yes, Bordy will reach out on your behalf and connect you with those people. Now, Bordy's actually morphed on and evolved to become a fundraiser. You can ask Bordy to find funding
Wow,
for
that's
your company.
amazing.
And I would
Huh.
recommend it. I was one of the first 100 companies that Bordy onboarded to see what it was like. And it was like drinking from a fire hose. I had constant iterations of people that were interested in the company because Bordy is global. And so it will get you outside of Midwest or Michigan or any place else. So I do believe that we need to have the duo, as you said, but to your point, maybe one and a half, and the other half is AI these days.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, that's very exciting. Now, this is an impossible question for you to answer, but give it a shot. Looking ahead 5 years, you've been in this business a long time, and your father gave you a lot of insights when he was in it. You were at the dinner table when you were 15 years old watching him. What do you think's going to happen? What's going on? We already know AI's taking over, and we can't ignore it. Uh, what what kind of are you a doom and gloomer, or are you more like Peter Diamandis, more optimistic?
I tend to hope for the best and prepare for the worst. But it's the so where is it going? Okay, so earlier the question was where would you invest in AI? What's happening in AI? And I responded with agentic, and I responded with management of agentic platforms
Right.
or agentic platform management. Where we're really going today, where all the buzz and where all the hype is AI in the physical. Okay. So when
Oh,
you
like a
look
robot.
like a robot, exactly like a robot, or like an automated Waymo car, or
Right.
like an automated submarine that doesn't need people to go below the water and patrol coastal lanes, or your automatic EV trains that I've seen that are box cars that are self-sustaining, and if you link a bunch of them together, they actually generate their own power. And so, what is next and what is coming is AI and the physical. And we're going to start seeing within the next 5 years, easily within the next 5 years, humanoid looking robots, to your point, things that don't necessarily look like me, but they have the same structure, maybe a couple more arms or legs, or maybe they've got a rotor on the bottom and maybe they've got a spinning something on the top. But we're
Well,
gonna
that is
have to
so inspiring because, I have to tell you a sad story. About a month ago, up by Frankfurt, in northern Michigan,
sure.
we got dumped. My brother he's 70 something, 70, I think. Anyway, he's a diabetic and he lives in Frankfurt and he got snowed in and he stepped on a three-prong plug, didn't even realize it cracked it. Long story short, they took off his foot. He lost his foot. And so they're fitting him for a prosthetic right now. And
Mm,
all I can think of is, wait, how can we do this with a robot? I mean, is there something out there for him for this problem? Because, he's not older. He wants to drive. He likes to do stuff. He's a carpenter. He's got a lot of years left. How do you think that there might be something for them
of
in the
course. I
future?
mean, you're talking about AI powered prosthetics.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. And because you're not talking about cybernetics, which is the actual
No.
fusion of human and cyber. You're talking about simply like a prosthetic limb or foot or hand. Absolutely. And AI has already disrupted that because it's already showed them because there's front end and back end disruption. There's all the things that are happening now where AI is incorporated into manufacturing technology and how do we get things to market faster, and then there's the front end of AI, the ones that we humans interact with. So I could definitely see your brother at some point in time. I mean, the prosthetic that he's wearing could definitely have been created by AI specifically for him, 3D printed on something for him, and then having, if there would be, at the point right now, we're not where prosthetics do a great deal for a foot, but for a hand where you have to have articulation and other things, it'll be just a short matter of time before AI is assisting the human in those body movements.
Oh, I hope so. I keep praying that there'll be some breakthrough for him because he's got a lot going on. He's got a lot to offer people. Well, wow, what an awesome podcast today with Tim Moore. I'm gonna kind of wrap this up. Any last words, Tim, before we cut you loose to get back to Clixie AI and all the great things you're doing there and get ready for tonight. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, all I can do is encourage people to get out there. We're coming into a time now where even if you're looking for funding, if you're looking for anything, there's going to be an AI interface in front of you. So if you're doing things online, if you're applying for things online, if you're trying to pitch competitions and things like that online, you're going to be dealing with AI and understand that. So get out there in the real world in the analog, and if you can do this, you know them, they're still real, and make friends and understand your ecosystem before you try to build something because your ecosystem is your biggest supporter even if you haven't found that out yet.
Thank you. That's awesome. Well, Tim, thank you for joining us today and sharing your insights and experiences. It's always inspiring to hear from entrepreneurs who have built companies across decades and technologies and across the globe. Your perspective on AI and innovation is truly valuable, and you have inspired me today, and I thank you for that. And for everyone listening, if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe to Bullish on Business, this podcast, for more conversations about entrepreneurs and with entrepreneurs and leaders who are building the future of business. And Tim, I would really enjoy having this conversation with you. Um, and when we can dig deeper into the angels and bootstrapping. And then we'll put your details in the show notes. So if you want to get a hold of Tim, you can find it in the show notes. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, and TikTok, and you name it. We're out there. So with that, see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.